Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming, more Arc Raiders. Today we're talking about the weapons of the game because I think we're a little overdue for a balance update, like a real one. I'm of the opinion that your epics, your purple weapons, should have some sort of benefit to using them. Whether that's something like much improved durability so they last so much longer than other weapons, or something else they decide. So where do things stand right now? We're going to do a list for PvE and PvP once again and update things. So let's start with the PvE list. I'm going to start with the two weapons that were changed in the most recent patch of 1.7. What did they say about bettina that makes me put it here? In 1.7, they affected the durability burn rate, which was insane. They told us that it would take 12 full magazines to deplete your durability, but now it takes 26. On top of that, they increased the base magazine size, and the reload time was reduced. All of this is solid, but it doesn't change the fact that the bettina, at its core, is a low fire rate weapon with nasty horizontal recoil. It requires heavy investment to upgrade and get into a reasonable point. What's funny is they said this about it. The changes are trying to make the bettina less of a secondary weapon required weapon, which is such a bad concept. Their data shows the weapon is still the highest performing PvE weapon at its rarity, not including the hullcracker. So you might not like the bettina, but in their own words, it's the highest performing PvE weapon, or one of, according to their own data. And yet now it lasts longer, fires for longer per mag, and faster reload. All of this makes it very effective and reliable for PvE. You compare it to something like a ferro or even an anvil that are going to do like double the damage per shot, but a ferro has to reload fully after every shot. An anvil can fire 6 times, then has to do a long reload. The bettina can fire 22 times at its base form. So it's true, it is really good for targeting weak points, and with the heavy ammo, stripping armor off targets. With all weapons at this point, you want to be hitting those weak points because you'll devastate them, and it is a very reliable weapon that you just simply need to bring in a lot more ammo than most weapons on average. But obviously it's a very different story when it comes to PvP. On the other hand, we have the other newly buffed weapon in 1.7, the rattler. They took the base magazine size and increased it from 10 to 12. Not a massive change in theory, but as you upgrade it and get a bigger magazine count per upgrade, it actually ends up with a pretty decent mag actually. As they said, even though the rattler isn't intended to compete with the sticher or kettle at close ranges, they gave it this minor buff to improve its PvP time to kill at lower levels, closer to the sticher and kettle. But they want it to be more of a deliberate weapon where you dip in and out of cover, reloading and firing in bursts. I remember reading that and being so whelmed. At the start of this wipe when I did the expedition, they give you a rattler 3 as part of a quest reward, and I used it the entire first 3 days. It's medium ammo, so every shot is relevant and good against arc, especially when you're mag dumping into a weak point. The ability to kill a single arc and then quick reload and continue. And yeah, even in PvP, that base magazine size is a lot better. So I'm not saying the rattler is like a sick, amazing weapon. I still don't think it's as good as a sticher or a kettle, but it's not like the D tier horrible thing that it once was. All you need to do for this weapon is upgrade it, and attachments are just a bonus. Okay, with the 2 big changed weapons covered in that detail, let's now blast this list, starting with the hairpin that is still D tier. If you use the hairpin, you're one of the coolest players in the game. I love using the hairpin, it's really fun, and you can be pinpoint accurate and precise into weak points in specific areas like turbines against targets. Feels awesome to use, I really enjoy it. But it's a bad weapon, and I hope that they massively change how fast it takes to cock each shot, or do some balancing to even increase further the damage per shot, something. For B tier then, behind the rattler we have the arpeggio. It's firing medium ammo in triple bursts, and when you upgrade it and actually get attachments on it, it becomes quite reliable. But the truth is, a rattler performs way better out of the box and requires less investment to upgrade to a relevant level. I actually don't like using the arpeggio in general in PvE because the burst just doesn't work. I'd rather mag dump into a battery when I have that moment. Not bad, by far not my favourite. Next up then in B tier, we also have the burletta, which is a decent enough weapon where you're firing off these light shots really quick. I like how quick you can mag dump with it, and as you upgrade it, you can reload quicker. So really a level 1 burletta in regards to PvE is more than fine. And obviously the downside here is you're firing light ammo, so it's got to be into the weak points of an arc. It can do the job, but you can largely do the exact same job with something like a kettle or a sticher with less investment required. Also in B tier, for killing arc, we have osprey. I like the osprey for the purpose of pinpoint accurate shooting into the weak points. It definitely has its purpose and place. It can be actually really nice for dealing with rocketeers, firing at them from a long range and just taking them out with the stopping power of each shot. Dealing with them before they even reach you is really nice, but you can also do the same thing with a ferro. I do wonder if we'll ever see a buff for the osprey, maybe a faster chamber time, much like what we hope for the hairpin. Also in B tier, we have the bobcat. Mag dumping light ammo into a weak point can be effective, especially during a CC from a showstopper or like a leg break on a bastion bombardier. But you know, you can do the exact same thing with a kettle, with a sticher, which is why I put them relatively in the same place. You want to mag dump as quick as you can into a weak point in those periods of CC, so obviously a bobcat with a higher fire rate can do that. But you don't want to miss the shots. Bobcat requires more investment from upgrading and attachments to make that true. Kettle level 1, Sticher level 1 do the same thing without any investment at all, but they're pretty interchangeable. Finally for B tier, we also have the Vulcano and the Toro. Shotguns with their special shotgun ammo essentially have no armor pen at all, but do massive bursts when you're dealing that damage to the weak point. I've killed bastions with a Toro by basically focusing the legs from up close, then running while it's CC to the back battery or the exposed core, and just dumping these shotgun shots in there, dealing ridiculous damage. But in most contexts, its tiny range and inability to get through arc armor holds them back. Now we get a bit more interesting with A tier, where at the top of the A tier I'm going to put the ferro. It's just so stupidly effective at what you're doing with it. Literally no upgrades just means a longer reload time, and you can use a level 1 ferro to kill pretty much any arc. Upgrading it just picks up the pace, which is really nice. I've literally just used a basic ferro to kill leapers, bastions, and of course, take the parts of matriarchs and queens by just targeting their legs, then de-aggroing and going and looting those parts. It's like the ultimate arc killing gun in terms of budget, only really outclassed by one similar gun that does exactly the same thing but better, which is why I keep it in A tier rather than S tier, where you could argue it could be. Also up in A tier, right behind the bettina then, is the tempest. Instead of firing heavy ammo like the bettina, it's firing medium ammo. But the difference between damage isn't massive. It's 10 damage per shot with the tempest, 14 per shot with the bettina. But obviously the bettina's heavy ammo, so will break through armor and penetrate really well. Medium ammo will not do that nearly as well. The tempest is a very reliable weapon, but it also requires upgrading and attachment investment to turn it into the beam that everyone enjoys. But when it is in a solid form, mag dumping into a weak point with this thing is super easy and effective, and you have better damage per shot compared to your bobcats, kettles and stitchers. So it's just a fantastic, reliable weapon. Also up there, pretty much same level, is the torrente. Honestly, it's hard to beat this thing in your hands when you're swinging an arc with a weak point. If you're just mag dumping effectively into a core of like a bastion, the matriarch with its pretty exposed core, getting these shots on target is like the hard part, but if you crouch, you make it easier, attachments make it easier. Upgrading just means you reload quicker, right? Which is not relevant for this concept. Let's say you're facing a bastion. You've disarmed it with a ferro. You're running to the back battery or whatever. A torrente is going to be a top tier choice there to mag dump as long as possible into that weak point and take it out in one cycle. Incredibly effective at that and really fun too. Up there with it, I have the Aphelion. And right next to that, the Jupiter. These two special legendary weapons serve an important purpose. With their energy ammo, you're able to strip armor off, but the Aphelion has serious stopping power between the shots, thanks to the velocity of these shots. So you can quite literally bully a rocketeer by causing it to flip and fling around when you target its turbine specifically. Or a leaper, you cause it to flop around and it can't move, and you can knock it out the air because of that velocity of shot. Super fun and satisfying, but the damage per shot is actually not massive. It's the great CC'er and stripper, reliable as well in PvP, best used against flyers really, that then you swap to a different weapon to now max DPS the weak point, which holds it back. Similar in the way to the Jupiter, has this beautiful burst fire every time you fire it, but it takes charge up time, and then worse, you have a chamber time between each shot. So it cannot burst things down, it really takes time. It is like the premium small flying arc killer though, if you're going for trials of that nature. Able to fire at ridiculous ranges, pinpoint accurately. And based on where you're firing and the angle, its unique penetration effect can insta-kill things, which means you can insta-kill your wasps and your hornets when fired from like above or below. This also applies to bastions as it turns out. If you fire into the roof of a bastion, down and clip into the core, it's like kind of the old hullcracker explosion radius that they nerfed, allowing you to hit the core in a scenario where you normally wouldn't be able to, allowing you to surprisingly quickly kill them with this weapon when used in that way. So there is some serious potential that people maybe still underrate. Last for A tier then is the basic venator. Venator still remains fantastic, especially when upgraded with the double shots and the fire rate you can get with that. It's also super easy to control because ultimately it's just got mainly vertical recoil and it goes up to the right. And with its medium ammo, it's got reasonable stopping power against flyers. And you can absolutely mag dump it to a weak point. It's just not going to be the absolute premium best option for that. That's why it's at the bottom of A tier. Holding strong in S tier, then we have the hullcracker, and maybe that'll upset some people. Look, it remains your best option generally for bursting damage into an arc. The hullcracker, as per its name, is now more about cracking the hull than it is just killing a thing in like 6 shots. You need to target the weak points, you need to strip the armor, and then hit the core or whatever it is. It requires precision aim now, which can be hard with the velocity of the shots. The cost of it is pretty ridiculous. The actual getting of it, the upgrading of it, running the launcher ammo, it's not something you run out of unique situations where you're willing to heavily invest. So it's a shadow of what it was before, but if you have the ammo and the setup, it's still very effective. Speaking of very effective, we have S tier for anvil. The anvil is basically the better ferro, because you're able to fire 6 times instead of once. It doesn't require any attachments, so you just upgrade it and it becomes an absolute machine. One of the most reliable weapons in the game for all contexts. Shooting a weak point, revealing the weak points with the heavy ammo, pinpoint accuracy at close, medium and long range. It's honestly hard to beat, but it can be beaten for specific purposes. So also S tier, we have the equalizer. The pinpoint accuracy and ridiculous range of this weapon means it's one of the top choices to bring to big arc killing, such as killing queens or say your matriarchs. Stripping the armor off of the legs or limbs or anything that's preventing you from shooting the best weak zone, unbelievably quick. When it comes to regular big arc, you need to be a bit smarter with it. Stripping off the armor that protects, say, a bastion or bombardier's legs really quick, then just shooting the weak point with a different weapon that's going to be more effective. You can really quickly strip off the protective top plate of a rocketeer with this thing, and then pinpoint accurately shoot the exposed top with the equalizer or a different weapon with higher DPS. So it's best used really in a duo in that scenario, or trio, where you're revealing the weak points and someone else on your team is shooting effective DPS into those weak points. But the only weapon I would put in S+ is the renegade. When fully upgraded, you don't really even need attachments, but yeah, mags and other stuff is nice. It's just the most consistent, reliable, and accurate any range PvE killer. And when fully upgraded with the fire rate that it has incredible DPS for that pinpoint accuracy. The whole point here is that you're shooting accurate shots into weak points, where this will be the weapon of choice for speed killing in that context. As I fire into the leg joint of a bastion bombardier with a ferro, each shot's going to deal more damage with a ferro, but then you have a pause time. The renegade can fire straight into that knee joint like 10 or 15 times in the time you fired one ferro shot. So you're applying that output significantly quicker and the accuracy is just there, even at long ranges. So if I'm killing a queen or a matriarch, once I've exposed the core, I'd ideally want a fully upgraded renegade to be shooting that core to kill it as quick as possible. It's just unbelievably good against every arc, as long as you're firing the weak point. So yeah, there's our 1.7 updated list for the PvE weapons. And why? Let's now go to PvP. So here we are with the PvP list. Let's once again start with the 2 weapons that were actually changed in the recent patch and just talk about them, starting with the bettina, which I'm also going to put in A tier, but it's definitely going to be towards the bottom of A tier. For the purpose of PvP, this weapon is best used when fully upgraded and fully attached. If it's not, then I would put it like B or C or something, but we're pretending you're using it in the best scenario, so let's just be clear about that. Even then, in the best scenario, the bettina is essentially a bad assault rifle, better used up close due to the awkward vertical and especially horizontal recoil that it has even when you address those issues. The best thing you can do is address its fire rate and increase that because it's very slow. It is unreliable at longer ranges or say mid to long ranges, but then at close range you're going to lose the fight against someone using a close range weapon properly. So I still find it in an awkward place, even though they made these changes to make its durability last longer, to increase the mag size and the base reload time. You feel these things when fully upgraded, but it requires a lot of investment for something that isn't really worth the investment. But I could easily see people putting it in B tier at the same time. Alongside that, I've been very impressed and appreciative of the new rattler. Even though the buff itself was pretty small, just increasing the base magazine size by 2 shots as you upgrade it, you're getting a lot more value there. Before you know it, you've actually got a really decent mag size. It doesn't require any attachments to do well, it's consistent enough. And actually the whole peeking, doing a couple shots and reloading before then the full mag dump is nice. Though I will say plenty of times where I've got the 12 shots, it's just barely not enough to put someone down in one mag in a close sort of all-in sudden fight. It still has its weaknesses, but it's not the absolute nightmare terrible gun that it once was. And that's interesting because again, all they did is increase the mag size initially and as you upgrade it. So if you still think it's like a terrible gun, I think that's not fair anymore, but it's also not one of the best, sure. Right, let's work our way up from quicker entries. First up, hairpin. Once again, if you use this in PvP, you're one of the coolest players and I respect the hell out of you. I love memeing with it, but that's what it is, a meme. That chamber time between shots is abysmal, so it needs more damage per shot or like really fast chamber effect. Maybe when you upgrade it, you get really smooth with it, I don't know. You already kind of do and it's not enough. Top of B tier, I put the burletta. I like how quick you can mag dump with this thing. I think people sleep on it. Get a nice mag attachment, get a silencer on it, and it's awesome. You don't even need to upgrade it. You're just able to reload quicker, which to be fair is nice. But you're essentially competing with the kettle with the burletta, and the kettle is a common, so requires less to upgrade, and is more attachable to address its issues in different ways. Or then you've got, say, the sticher, where you can just mag dump someone. I think there's argument to put the burletta in A, but I wouldn't go further than that. Also down in B tier then we have all of the special guns, so let's just talk about them at once. The Affiliate is probably the best PvP weapon of the lot of them in my opinion. You fire 3 shots at once and you need to fire 2 to 3 of these bursts into a target to take them down. It works best in an effective medium to longer range, where I really enjoy using this thing, but if someone surprises me up close, we can do like a short burst swing, almost like I'm using an arpeggio, and cycle that a couple times and you can do really well with that. But the fact that you have to hit with most of the shots 3 bursts in a row before someone goes down is pretty rough. If they slightly improved its time to kill, it would shoot my estimations of this gun up in terms of PvP. For the Jupiter, it hits hard, it feels great, you got really good long distance with it, but then obviously the wind up time is a problem. People see it coming and they can evade around it, but honestly people don't usually react. What usually happens is I hit the first shot and then they freak out and go into cover, heal up, and there's nothing I can do. Much like the Osprey. If it's a team fight scenario though, I can play at a medium or longer range and help sort of support my team with these nasty shots that cause them to freak out and then make them free shooting for my team. Like we play in the swamp here. It has its purpose then, not bad, not good. Lastly, we have the equalizer, which will absolutely destroy people if you get to whir up and surprise them with it. But if they know what's happening, they can rush you before you get to whir up, then it's GG. Or in many scenarios, toro, vulcano, sticher, bobcat, kettle, so on, they can literally out-trade you in an all-in scenario. Which is terrible for a gun that's kind of meant to be all-in or nothing. So, holds it back. Top of A tier then for me is the torrente, which is basically the equalizer but better in terms of PvP because you just get it out, you start firing and go. At level 1, it's really phenomenal, which means it doesn't require any investment. If you upgrade it, yeah, you get better reload time, but who cares? With this gun, you're all-inning or they're dead. Slap on an increased mag size, maybe help it with a compensator. That's why I really like this gun and that's how I approach it. I don't invest in it. But if you surprise someone with a slide all-in, or you surprise a team by hitting a flank and then crouch peeking them to reduce the recoil, you can 1v3 with this thing, given the right circumstance. Also an up in A tier, and you could argue for S tier for it, it's the ferro. Even at level 1, you fire it and then swap to a different gun. It works like a shotgun in that way. One headshot and they're basically done, any follow-up is going to finish them. Including swapping to your melee and hitting them, which is really fun. At level 4, you can use it as a medium or longer range weapon really effectively with high uptime of those nasty hits you're providing, especially if you headshot. And as it is a common weapon, it's so cheap to upgrade, like minimum level 3 with this thing every single time. But in a sustained fight, it has its problems because obviously you have to reload between each shot. If someone full commits on you while you've got this in your hands, it can be a problem. Also, here's some support and credit to the arpeggio, which when upgraded, you know, you have like respectable reload time. With attached, you can get those 3 shots pretty much on target. People can use it to great effect at close range if you do quick, short burst swings between the burst fire. But I don't know, even at its highest level and fully upgraded, this thing lets me down in PvP plenty of times. Something about the way it feels to play isn't for me. So I put the respect that it deserves in A tier, but I will probably never put it higher than that because every time I use it, something just doesn't feel good about it for me. Lastly for A tier, the respect that the Osprey probably deserves, as it is basically the only long-range reliable sniper with a real optic in the game. Slap on the attachment to increase its velocity and you can actually do some serious, almost hit-scan sniping with this, or actually surprisingly control rocketeers. The problem with the Osprey is that you fire, you come out of the scope, you watch him chamber the next hit, and then you zoom in, and the target's repositioned. Where are they? In that time, they've gone into cover, they're healing up. It's a really long process between shots, and you're never going to one-tap someone with this thing. It's a dangerous thing for them to buff without making the game pretty oppressive, and there are some maps where it shines more than others, requiring a specific playstyle. But you'd never use an osprey on its own, you'd combo it with something else. Bit more interesting, bit more exciting is this big resurgence of the Tempest Love, the most reliable assault rifle in the game. Solid at close range, phenomenal at medium range, very effective at medium to long range, even full auto. You will need to actually upgrade it to address its recoil problems and give it the attachments that it needs, but it's one of those few times where it's actually worth it because it's so versatile and functional in every situation. We're seeing a lot of people run this for PvP runs now, and I just think it's a really fun and satisfying gun to use. Much like the Renegade. The Renegade can be used at close range with like hip fire, really quick shots, especially when fully upgraded with a nice fire rate that it gets. But you're firing these pinpoint accurate medium to long range shots, but most people are just not going to be able to outtrade you. If they press you at close range, that's where it's going to be weakest, but again, it's functional and viable. It's just a really fun and satisfying weapon to use. Maybe I'd combo this best with a shotgun, or some kind of all-in close-range weapon to fill where it's weakest. Up there in S tier then, we have the Toro and the Vulcano. I actually rate the Toro above the Vulcano. Why? Well, the Toro can two-pump people. The Vulcano isn't going to do the same thing, but it is going to stat check, like full mag dump into someone every single time. You upgrade it to do that faster, you give it increased mag size to do that for longer. The Toro, you only need 2 to 3 shots in a close range scenario, and that's when you're using the shotgun anyway. At lower levels, you have time to roll between pumps, which is a really effective thing to do, meaning there's no investment needed for it. When fully upgraded, it has surprisingly solid time to kill, like a weaker Vulcano in terms of fire rate. But then each individual shot hits harder, so I prefer that. Plus, it's not as rare, it's common, and it's easier to upgrade. So between the two, I rate the Toro a bit higher, but I really enjoy the Vulcano. Next up, we have the Sticher, the Kettle, and the Bobcat. You can argue they're relatively interchangeable. The Sticher does slightly more damage than the Bobcat, but has slightly slower fire rate. But the Sticher requires nothing to work incredibly well. Literally level 1 with no attachments works super well. Fully upgraded, costs very little, and you can one mag people so easily. The Bobcat, the same thing but with a faster time to kill, but you need to be accurate with those shots. It also requires way more investment to run, which is literally the upgrading and the attachments that it's going to need, but a properly set up Bobcat is a real machine. Anytime someone's going to swing me up close, pulling out a Bobcat feels like an incredible, unfair advantage. But if they're at any medium range, completely different story. Lastly, we have the Kettle, which does fantastic up close and at medium to longer ranges when upgraded, so its velocity issue is resolved. Once again, it's a common weapon, so super cheap and effective to run and upgrade, level 3 minimum every single time. And it's a headshot machine, requiring say like 7 headshots to kill a medium shield. And it's so easy to headshot people as they stand there ADSing you in trade scenarios. Absolutely love this thing. The only downside is that you gotta, tap fire, which takes some effort and some people just can't be bothered after a certain period of time. And yeah, to give it a quick passing mention, the cheat that exists where people are using a macro to reach ridiculous fire rates for the Kettle, that's obviously insane and takes this weapon from like really good to the best or the best PvP time to kill weapon. But that is literally a cheat, so shouldn't affect the weapon's rating and hopefully is removed from the game soon. Lastly, for the S+ tier, I think 2 weapons deserve the spot. We have the Venator and we have the Anvil, because they're just fantastic on their own or together. And they're like the basis of every fantastic kit. You've got a Renegade and you want to be able to use something that's like up close, a Venator's going to be insane. You've got a Toro and you want something that can deal with medium to long range, an Anvil's going to be insane. But then the Venator works at close range, medium range, and relative long range with correct fire. An Anvil works up close because you can double headshot someone, they're just done, and the fire rate allows for it very quickly. But then obviously super accurate at medium and longer ranges too. Both of these weapons work on their own fantastically, they work together unbelievably, and they can be that sort of foundational swap you make for a weapon that has issues in this or that aspect. Yes, the Venator was nerfed to not be as broken as the literal best weapon in the game, but even now, its fire rate and time to kill and reliable use is so good. Whereas the Anvil is just ever reliable. If there's one weapon I'd recommend for basically every scenario, PvE, PvP, it'd probably be the Anvil. So that's my PvP list and why. And as a quick look and reminder, here is my PvE list. What would you like to see changed in each weapon? And hopefully in the early new year, we see some serious balance changes just for variety. Until next time then, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching, we'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.